This afternoon, I'd like to introduce Forbes Guthrie with Stewart Environmental Consultants, who will start us off, and Greg Jones with the P3 Futures Group, who will then pick up the baton and carry it forward, and we'll see how they hand things back and forth after that. But it gives me a great pleasure at this point to introduce Forbes Guthrie.
My name is Forbes Guthrie. I take care of the strategic initiatives as well as our key client interaction at Stewart Environmental. One of the tenets that I want to convey today is as part of our presentation, we want to bring all of this together. Lynn Karowski did a great job of engineering how this would work. He built the stage. And as we drill down this afternoon, we're going to start getting to where, what can I do? As a small business, small, medium-sized business person, what can I do? How much is it going to cost? What's the bottom line? And that's what I'm going to attempt to do with Greg today. So just to give you a little bit of framework, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of the major stakeholders and governments in Colorado, particularly in northern Colorado, and recently with the city of Greeley. In doing that, we got introduced to the Monfort College of Business and the Monfort Institute, and we got to know Lynn and his crew. And as we were talking about 6 to 8 months ago, we were working through the objectives of this forum, and one of the things I mentioned, I said, one of the things that we need to talk about is LEED and high-performance buildings. And at Stewart Environmental, we're actually on the supply side of the renewable energy business. We do a lot of work in innovative engineering for energy and water, and in biomass, and in water resources. And so we're on the supply side. So I said, certainly we can do that. Dave Stewart, who is our CEO, gives classes all around the United States, and he works with RMI, as well as a number of other people, to do sustainability forums. And so I talked to Dave, and I said, Dave, we've been invited to do a talk on sustainability and high-performance buildings. So that was great. Lo and behold, he got called off to Congress to speak before Congress today on sustainability. So I thought, well, because I only know really the supply side of the equation, who can I get? And so I went back and I said, well, I know the perfect person. His name is Greg Jones. I got to know Greg through a company called Porter Industries, a green cleaning company over in Loveland. Greg also, though, most notably started the Northern Colorado chapter of the USGBC. So you guys know, or may know, USGBC really is behind the LEED standards of high-performance buildings. And so with that, what Greg and I did was we attempted to put a lot of these concepts together into really, as a business owner, what do I need to do? How much is it going to cost? And really, what sense does it make to do these initiatives? So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Greg. Greg's going to talk through a lot of the structure of the LEED certifications and so on as actually a guideline for what you can do to follow. After that, though, what we're going to do is go through some real-life examples. And that may spur you to say, okay, wow, I can do that. And if I do collaboration, there's a lot of undercurrents that we've heard today. If I do collaboration, we can get even farther. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Greg.
Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody for being here and taking time out of your day to come in and see what's going on with sustainability, especially over in this part of northern Colorado. I want to thank Forbes for inviting me to come in and share any of the knowledge that I can with you, and I want to thank UNC for sponsoring this conference. P3 Futures Group is basically, P3 is the people, planet, and profit that you've been hearing about, and obviously companies need to earn a profit or else they're not going to be very sustainable and not be around. And of course in today's environment, sorry about that, but in today's world, anybody that uses recycled paper is now a environmentalist or a green company, so that kind of goes by the wayside. And the most important aspect to me is the people. That's all of us. We're either the customer, the client, the CEO, whatever, and we're the drivers of the whole thing, and that's why we're doing this, is to help put it all together. So what the aspect of what I do is try to work within companies to find some of the hidden money that's available, which a lot of companies are finding now by a lot of the cutbacks that they've been doing. It's certainly there and it's available, and then take that money and reinvest in the company, whether it's through good quality marketing or through more environmental initiatives. And of course, since we're not doing that today, we're doing it in the future, so that's how we came up with P3 Futures Group. Before we get started, there's a couple different ways of looking at companies and how they're approaching a lot of this process. The first thing is you can look at your mission, just like, say, New Belgium has been doing, and everything they do and they touch has to do with sustainability, whether it's their building or their process, their supply chain, or anything else. And I'm here to tell you that I'm doing my best to support New Belgium every Friday and Saturday night that I can. So just wanted to pass that on. Secondly, you can do it through your product or your service, and a lot of companies, are starting with that through their packaging or the process, their supply chain or their vendors or their fleet. And then the final way you can do it is through the brick and mortar, the actual building that you're in. And that's what we wanted to talk about today, is the green building part of it. USGBC, U.S. Green Building Council, is a nonprofit organization. They have probably just under 20,000 members. And it gets a little complicated on how you do that, because you cannot be a local member, you have to be a national member. And it's based on the amount of income or revenue that you have as a company, of how much it costs to become a member there. They are the drivers behind the LEED, L-E-E-D, Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. And it hit me about 2 weeks ago about that design part that I want to talk about in a minute. But there's different components about the green building, and then there's the cost benefit ratio that needs to be considered. The green building components, some or all of them. Do you want to go full tilt and become a certified green building? Well, there's certainly advantages to doing that, or at the very least of just doing something like changing out to fluorescent, compact fluorescent bulbs will make a difference. And we wanted to try and give you a point of reference of where those are. And then, of course, the energy and indoor air quality are probably two of the lowest hanging fruit items that you can get your hands around and do something and decide how much further you want to go with the process. And then, like Forbes said, we'll get into some case studies, some actual dollars to put with the project. Okay. So the first thing, you look at your building, you look at your status, and you hear all of these wonderful ideas. Gosh, development of a long-term asset. If you look at a building, it's probably going to be around 30, 50 years, so you might as well make it as efficient as you can by using as local materials as you can and do that entire process. You want to have lowered operating costs. This is one of the things that if I were to get on a soap stand about, it's in reality, probably only a handful of us will even be involved in the design or building of a new building, either with our company or even in our industry, unless you make it a point of that's what you're going to do. Realistically, the rest of us are already in our buildings. So how do you make that a green building? Well, the USGBC has a lot of different categories, and the two most popular ones are certainly the new construction, or NC, or the existing building, which is the EB. And some of the examples I'm going to show here are kind of generic and interrelated on how they score points and some of the different categories. So I don't want you getting too confused about which one's back and forth. But the lowered operating costs, certainly operating costs have little to do with a new construction, but it's how it's designed and built which will create those costs over the course of the next 30 to 50 years of that building existence, maybe even 100 years. Lower risk and liability. If you have a green building, it's a well-managed, or hopefully a better managed building. You have improved worker productivity, and of course that's probably our largest asset with any company is our employees. And if they're motivated and they're in a green building and they're feeling good about the company, then they're going to have a higher rate of return. Win and retain employees. or attract and retain them, winning contracts. You know, there's going to come a point, just like ISO did to us, that some businesses will not do business with you if you are not ISO certified. It's getting that same way with sustainability and green building and, you know, whatever else that we're doing in that regard. And of course, the marketability. We are a green company if we have a certified green building. Okay, simply, what is a green building? According to the LEED program, you basically have 5 different categories in which you can score points. First is the site planning. The second one, going counterclockwise, indoor environmental quality, material use, energy, and of course water management. Now, if you're going to design a building, if you're going to start from scratch, the biggest bang for the buck, the best way to get the biggest return on anything you're going to do in that new construction is before you even select a site, before you even put a pencil to it, is to get a charrette together, which is a team that you've heard about earlier today of the different disciplines, and all start talking together. And highly recommend to you that you don't even consider money at this point. Don't consider how much money it's going to cost, how much you're going to save, or anything like that. Is just put your pie in the sky picture together and start from there. And then start looking at what makes the most sense in that building, and then get back down to reality and say, okay, we can't have this 100%, but we can have this 82%, just like they were talking about the energy savings. They weren't going to settle at 12%, and they certainly weren't going to go up to 50%, so they kind of compromised. It came out at 38%. Best way to do that is do not think of dollars at that point in time. USGBC is a collaboration of a lot of different disciplines, and they like to believe that they're in charge of a lot of different aspects of it, which is kind of hard to encompass everything and try to corral the thing. But if you look at their history, they're probably not quite 20 years old. To have 20,000 members nationally, to have thousands of buildings that have followed this, to have it as a standard with a lot of federal governments and municipalities, that this is the definition of a green building. They're stewards of the market transformation. They have great education programs. They're always in flux. They're always learning different ways of how to do stuff. They have great forums. They do build community, and they do have a lot of tools and different expertise. Just go to their website, and you can spend the other part of those 60 hours of your education learning about USGBC and green building. Okay, now if you look at this, this is what one of the hardest parts for me when we were starting the branch chapter up here was to try and put on educational programs that would get everybody's attention. We just decided it was impossible, so we would concentrate on the different aspects of it. You have building owners, you have planners, you have schedulers, property managers, you have everybody involved with this process. And then you start thinking, well, that's kind of a good thing if you can get everybody together and work on it. When Forbes and I were putting this together, we thought the federal, local, state governments and the code officials are probably the most important people to get involved and get active with this, because you have such conflicts. Some of the things that don't make sense. One of the ones that I love the best is the water rights in Colorado, where a lot of the water originates, but we can't keep it here. But a lot of the other states get to do and save, rainwater. Just as an example of the different conflicts of interest. Okay, leadership in energy and environmental design. It is the leading edge system for certifying the greenest performance buildings in the world. It's by far taken the lead of what a green building definition is. But that last word, design, is probably what I have the hardest time with. It's about design. And a lot of this has to do with the new building and how it's put together. It's critical. You've got one shot of doing this, so it's very important that it is designed properly. So it takes a collaborative effort with everybody in there. But it hasn't in the past. It's getting better at talking about the existing building or the operations and maintenance of it. Okay, if you look at the complete life cycle of the building, again, you can get your building in a lot of different categories certified, whether it's a home, a neighborhood development, commercial interior, core and shell, new construction. They even have programs now for schools, healthcare, and retail. And then if you look over on the right, that's really faded out with the orange. Mine's orange. I don't know why it shows up yellow here, but existing buildings and operations and maintenance. Again, that building's going to be around for a long time, so it has to be properly run, properly operated. Probably, if you look at the total cost of buildings, your design build is about 11%. The financing is around 14%. I mean, I'm talking the life cycle of the building. And probably about 75% of the cost of that building is going to be in the operations and maintenance over the life cycle of that building. So that's going to be the important part of it. Okay, LEED. USGBC has 4 levels of LEED. They have certified, silver, gold, and platinum. And to give you an example, that's the kind of a points category that you get. So I'll talk in a minute about how to get to those points. Those categories I was telling you about: sustainable site, water efficiency, energy, atmosphere, materials, and indoor environmental quality. And of course, they have an innovation in operations. That's for everything else that doesn't fit in there that they haven't been able to figure out how to fit in there. You can make a case for an additional point or two and put it into that program. But again, it's limited. The ceiling on that is 7 points. Impacts of U.S. buildings on resources. When you talk about cars and you think about pollution and everything, you're only talking about 15, maybe 18% of carbon emissions. When you're looking at buildings, you're looking at almost 40% comes off of the energy and creating the energy for those buildings. Buildings, 40% of primary energy use, 72% of electricity consumption, and 13% of water consumption. That's just in the buildings alone. And if you look at those new buildings, there's, by comparison, a handful of new buildings in the area getting built. And across the country, there's about 5 million commercial buildings in the U.S. Anybody want to take a guess at the average size commercial building? No guesses? How about 8,000 to 10,000 square feet? How many of you are not in a building that is 8,000 to 10,000 square feet? There you go. A few of you. So you can see that it's just like a great big house. Well, for most of us, it's a great big house to have 8,000 to 10,000 square feet, and it doesn't have a lot of consumption in it. But when you put 5 million of them together, you have a lot of buildings to work with. So green buildings, on the plus side, can reduce energy use consumption up to 50%. They can reduce the CO2 emissions, the water use, and certainly the solid waste. Perceived business benefits. Why would you want to go to a green building? Well, again, if you're a building owner or if you're a building tenant that's paying rent, 8 to 9% operating cost decreases. And again, if you're the tenant, you need to be able to negotiate that with the owner. If you're the owner and the building value increases, and any return on investment on any of the improvements that you do, it would certainly make a lot of sense to consider if you want to go to a green building. Who's doing it? Who's around the country right now? This is a total state by state of certified and registered buildings. You can see Colorado is probably certainly in the upper half of the mix at 347 buildings, and this was of May of last year, so almost a year old. But they're not far behind big leaders like California and Washington, so there's certainly a lot of attention being drawn to a certified building. Now, the evaluation process. This would be the next step. I mean, you saw those and the reason to pursue this. It sure makes a lot of sense. Well, why isn't everybody just jumping out there and doing those things? Well, if you look at it, internally and externally, there's a lack of industry knowledge and skills. We don't know all of these different disciplines, and I have yet to meet anybody that knows everything about it. There's some that know quite a bit, but there's certainly a lot of other experts out there, so it's a collaboration with a lot of different people. Within the company itself, there's a lack of knowledge sharing. Finance may say, oh, this will be a capital cost, we can't do this. So they're in conflict with the marketing campaign that's coming up, so there may not be the money involved. There may be split incentives. There may be a reason to stay in this building versus building a new building someplace else. There's going to certainly be increased capital costs. There's outdated valuation techniques, whether it's underwriting, whether it's insurance, or whether it's just even the appraisal. The Green Building Conference that's once a year, They started out probably with about 4,000 to 5,000 people. I think in about 5 years' time, they had probably close to 30,000 people at the last conference. The one they had in Denver, they had a whole track of workshops and discussions that had nothing to do other than just real estate evaluations. So these guys are starting to realize the value of green building. Okay, so you put together the team, whether it's an internal team or whether it's external team, whether it's experts, whether it's somebody that's going to facilitate for you, somebody that's going to give you the outside advice, somebody that's going to be a part of your performance contractor. And then you want to start looking at your prerequisites and your first pass at your points or the level that you want to achieve. Now your prerequisites, when you do this and you try to get those points, you have to come up with, I think it's like 7 or 9 prerequisites in whatever program you're going to go for. And if you do not meet those prerequisites, you have to make a decision. That's a definite go, no-go point in your process. If you do not want to put the money into that process, you will never, ever become a LEED certified building. That's where you need to make the assessment, okay, how much is it going to cost to obtain those prerequisites? Once you do that, and this is through the rating system here, then you can decide where you're going to go. Some of the tools that are available in the rating system, these are all available through USGBC, and if you're a member, you get a discounted price for those. If you don't, then you can start spending some more money on obtaining a reference guide. The project checklist is available for free. The CIRs, that's my favorite one, the credit interpretation request. If it's not listed in that book and you think it is a sustainable or a green item, you can send it along with a check for $200, I believe it is, and they'll review it for you and say, yes, that's okay to do. You can go online. There's LEED online. You can certainly attend all kinds of educational workshops that are offered through USGBC and through independent sources, and you can look up case studies, and we'll have a couple of them listed here for yourself. Their website is usgbc.org. Feel free to take a look and see where you want to go with their tools. On the two of the categories, what we want to talk to, and didn't want to spend all day going through every one of these, but on energy and atmosphere is probably the biggest opportunity is in energy savings. And with all of the different opportunities now, you can score pretty good. Well, what's that score look like? Well, if you go to Energy Star and you take your last year's or the last 12 months energy, and that's natural gas, electric, whatever you're using, Energy Star has a calculator. You plug in those numbers and you can see what your score is. It used to be that they would accept 50% was the minimum. Now I believe it's like 65. You have to score 65 with a high of 100. And the higher you get, the more points you're eligible for. So at 65, you can receive 1 or 2 points, but you meet that prerequisite, which is critical. And if you get a higher ranking of up to, like, say, 98 to 100, you can pick up 15 points, whereas you can see about 2 of those grids down below, optimize energy efficiency performance. Yes, you have to meet the prerequisites, so you're going to meet some of the points there. It's how much you want to do. Then you can decide, okay, do I want to go further with these points by doing more insulation or whatever? And that's where you start investing some of the cost in retrofitting your building. Do you want to increase your energy performance? We wanted to talk about commissioning. One of the probably most forgotten or neglected parts of a new building and a turnover was the building commissioned? Now, if you have a new building, you have typically a 1-year warranty with that. And how do you know where you stand with the process? Did somebody walk through and check all the lights? Did they check all of the HVAC units? A quick story: when Ken Sargent and I were trying to do the commissioning of our building, it has 3 units in the subfloor, and so he was with the walkie-talkie up on the top, and I don't know why I was on the bottom, because it was in a crawl space. But anyways, the fuse boxes were numbered 1, 2, and 3, and the units were numbered 1, 2, and 3. So we were up there confirming that, and he was flicking off Unit 1, and Unit 3 was going off, and I thought he was being funny, and it was not marked properly. So that was one thing that we found. The second thing we found was that the ignition, the electronic ignition, wasn't working on unit number 2. No telling how long that had been out. So 2 of those units were working overtime to compensate for that third one. So obviously we were spending more energy, plus we were wearing out those other units. So it's a good idea to commission, even if you're not going to go for a green building. We won't get into the renewables. You've heard a lot about that, but you can certainly get points if you have wind power or other on-site type of regeneration. And your energy performance contracting. I don't know if, Forbes, you're going to address some of that, but there's certainly ways to finance in enhancing or renewing your HVAC system or some of your energy systems. Okay, indoor air quality. This is another checklist. Remember, there's 5 categories here. This is the second one. You have to have, for your prerequisites, an outdoor air introduction and an exhaust system. What that basically means is you have to prove that you have enough fresh air coming in for your employees, and it's based on a ratio of how many employees you have and how many square feet and how much your air changes are within the building. That one's a little bit tough, but not impossible. And again, in the Porter building, if we had to go get some blowers to bring in more fresh air, and we thought, well, geez, that's creating more energy to provide more fresh air. So we had called USGBC reviewers, and they said, well, we understand that, but for the small trade-off, it's more important to have fresh air in the building. So it was more concerned about the employees within the building. The environmental tobacco smoke, we thought that's pretty easy because anybody that smokes are outside anyways. Well, you have to write the procedure, you have to train everybody on it, and then you have to have it signed off that this is in effect. Then you have to post signs around the building. You cannot allow smoking within 25 feet of any entryway, any operable window, or any air intake, and you have to provide a smoking area outside. But that wasn't so difficult, so that was very minimal. And then a green cleaning policy. This is new on the existing building policy, and it talks about how you do your cleaning. And then there's a whole list, and you can get almost 9 points, and that was one of the reasons why Porter went for this, because there was a green cleaning company. It made sense that they could do this and help other companies get involved with the green cleaning program. Okay, now this is the moment of truth. You can do all this stuff, you can talk philosophically about it, but is it worth the costs or the savings? To this, I would say it really depends on who you are as a company and what you're trying to accomplish. Is it part of your sustainability program? Is it part of who you want to be and where you're going? I would highly recommend researching what a green building is and what it means to you. You have to be able to do some of the modeling and say, is this going to be worthwhile? Can I meet this? A great example, you saw Fossil Ridge High School saved $90,000. You cannot believe how lucky that was. Fort Collins High School was built in 1994. About 2 miles down the road, another almost identical type of high school, same type of usage in the same type of region, in the same type of environment. And that's what they compared it to. And they said, geez, in 10 years' time, we figured out that we can be that much better and more efficient on designing and building a green building and coming up with $100,000 savings. If my math's right, in 10 years, that's about $1 million for the school district that they can spend someplace else. The cost of doing business. Is it important to you to have a green building, to be known as a sustainable company? And how do you treat your costs? Is it an investment? Is it an expense? How do you work that? So from here, I'm going to turn it over to Forbes, going to go into some case studies and more specifics to try and make a little bit more sense to what I was telling you on a more hypothetical level there.
So thanks, Greg. Greg did a lot better job than I could. I can't quite become an expert reading it on the internet. So thanks. What I want to do is bring this together and say, okay, as a small to medium-sized business owner, what does this mean to me? And the best way to do that is through examples of case studies. And so through IFMA has a plethora of data on these type of initiatives. So one of them is Wells Fargo. Since May 2007, Wells Fargo has doubled its commitments for LEED buildings from $1 billion to $2 billion. It's increased the number of LEED buildings it's financed by 125%, and expanded its reach on financing to LEED certified buildings in 11 states and District of Columbia in 19 states. So the benefits of the certification, though, are essentially insurance companies recognize there's a profound value proposition for the customers. So if the building is higher performance, if the building is longer lasting on the building envelope, it's a higher performance building in the end economically for the customers, which is a big deal if you're an insurance company insuring that building. It redefines the risk for the business. If you're increasing your air exchanges inside the building dramatically, if you're increasing your employee comfort and safety as part of high performance building, that's of great value. So in a generality, buildings that are green are better risks. Now again, you don't have to be LEED Gold Platinum certified, but the LEED standards are actually a great model to model your initiatives after. So real estate assessment. Certified green, O&M, management, renovations, and recertification are all part of the LEED process. Again, as part of your analysis is what I do as a daily business, what I want to get out of this, how much do I have to spend on it. It really is an internal discussion, and it's just a discussion that you can have with a number of people through the industries like BOMA, IFMA, and then experts like Greg. So here's some case studies. I met Greg when he was working at Porter Industries before he had P3 Futures, and we've been doing some air analysis through our laboratory with Porter Industries. And Porter Industries is an innovative green cleaning company over in Loveland, Colorado. There aren't a whole lot of green cleaning companies. A lot of cleaning companies, again, bringing some of these undercurrents back to the discussion today. A lot of cleaning companies use business as usual. So the same cleaning operations have worked for years to years. It works. It's not broken. Well, there's better ways to do it. There's safer ways to do it. There's ways to do it that are less harmful to the environment, less harmful to the employees, increase employee comfort levels as well, and so on and so on. Well, Porter Industries, as part of their initiative, particularly on the marketing side first, they decided, well, let's become a green cleaning company. So in order to do that, they said, what do we need to do? Well, they looked at the LEED certification standards and said, okay, well, if we're going to talk the talk, we're going to walk the walk. So they started looking down the criterion list and said, okay, well, we can do this. So as part of their business development, Greg got to know all the LEED certifications. He actually is a LEED AP certified right now. And they wanted to lead by example. So in doing this, Greg was learning how to walk the walk and so on. And in addition, after he learned how to walk the walk, he developed a new consulting stream. So that's actually how his new business came about of P3 Futures. In addition, though, the Porter Industries building increased in value by making some incremental changes in their building and also documenting them. Their value of their building went up, which was excellent. And then the energy savings as well. So I'm not exactly sure how much you've documented it, but I do have some documentations of some very large initiatives as well. So it's a great learning process. They demonstrated a commitment to sustainability by working through the LEED structure. And most importantly, though, whether it's cleaning, environmental engineering, whatever you're doing, business as usual, as we found out, may not work optimally. It's collaboration, it's working together, a systems approach, talking to other people who may have a different viewpoint works. And so the holistic approach to green cleaning really worked from the people business, the environmental, and the challenge all came together to say, okay, we're going to do this different, we're going to make a business model out of it, and it's quite successful. So one of the companies that Porter worked with that I got to know because I actually had to go through their MSDS chemical analysis is Johnson Diversey. They make green chemicals. And one of their initiatives, they had the same initiative as Porter Industries. They said, okay, if we're going to make green chemicals, well, we might as well walk the walk. So they decided to become LEED certified, and in doing so, though, their annual energy cost savings was $90,000 per year. And that's a big deal. They also had 32% water savings, and their waste diversion was 49%. And so in doing that, that's a big deal. But it all comes down to cost benefit, so how much you have to spend to get all this stuff. So they've got a building floor space of a little bit over 250,000 square feet. Their initial implementation cost was only $73,000, roughly. The per square foot cost of that was 27 cents per square foot. But their annual net savings is staggering. Staggering is probably a light word. $137,000. So you can see that their ROI was less than a half a year. And that's big. So in looking through the LEED standards and all of the check boxes, it's just a matter of getting the low-hanging fruit, saying, okay, what's best for us as a company? Maybe I want to go for the gusto and get LEED Gold certified, or maybe I just don't want to do it all. And it's just it's a matter of what the business is all about. So as part of what I do with Stewart Environmental, I'm also involved in Fort Collins and what we do in our initiatives within the city. I was involved with the Fort Z initiative, which Jen Orglini had mentioned earlier today through her discussion. And Fort Z came about as a dream to essentially become a net zero city. So within, as she said, a 50-mile square radius, we would be a net zero city, which is a big, big goal. And it's one of those big, hairy, audacious goals. But this day and age, if you don't have one, then you're probably doing business as usual. So we sat down. We had a very diverse group of people. We had different agendas, different people, different skill sets. But one of the resounding things that came out of our discussions in the very beginning was, okay, let's just pick something and do it. And so in looking at, and I'll show you how this is all unfolded here in a minute, but in looking through the possible progression, it's the low-hanging fruit case study. This is an ideal case study for how a community or even a business can go about taking just one small step, and then it all snowballs. So our goal was to identify what was needed to move forward, and we said, okay, well, restaurants are one of the highest users of energy and resources around as a service company. They use a lot of electricity, they use a lot of water, and so on and so on. So we said, okay, let's go after restaurants. So let's see how we did. This is essentially the depiction of how this initiative fits into the Fort Z initiative in general. So as a net zero initiative, by 2024, we want to reach that goal. How are we going to do it? You've got to attack both the supply side and the demand side. And as we talked earlier, as I've been working with Governor's Energy Office, RMI, and so on, the low-hanging fruit is actually the demand side. The supply side will come. There's a lot of work to be done on the supply side, both on dirty and renewables. A lot of this isn't going to change overnight. It's too disruptive. But you can do a lot on efficiency. So within that, we said, okay, let's take a look at the demand growth. So we said, okay, well, Fort Collins is going to continue to go up. Let's take a look at efficiency. And that's really where we came to the restaurants. We said, okay, if we can get the majority of our restaurants to at least take a look for very low cost or no cost initiatives of what they can change, we can start making a difference. And that's what we did. So the low-hanging fruit, as you can see, I'm just going to concentrate on the graph on the lower right-hand corner here. But, of course, cooking, refrigeration, lighting, and cooling are the big deals. And so the Green Restaurant Association, as we started talking and networking and so on, collaboration again, they identified very effective ways where a restaurateur could change their practices that they'd been doing since the caveman era. And essentially by just changing a few things, you can make a big dent in those top 4 items. So as I mentioned before, the Green Restaurant Association, they've got a chapter here in Boulder, but they're nonprofit. They have 137 or 136 green restaurant business experiences to share, just like this, which is really cool. So if you're interested, even if you're not a restaurant, just to ping this company and say, okay, wow, let me see what I can do. It's a great experience. So they've got a program called dinegreen.com, which allows people who like to dine green or dine at restaurants who like to be green and purport to be green, help find those restaurants. So we named our program in Fort Collins Green Dining. And so it was a marketing campaign as well. So let me kind of show how this played out. We went to the restaurants and we said, we will help you to recognize some of these benefits. And by the way, we will also do some marketing for you guys. And so as a business owner, you say, wow, that's a great deal. And so this is essentially how it played out. We had a first group of early adopters, if you will. One of them was Carrabba's Restaurant in Fort Collins. And Carrabba's said, okay, I'm on. How can I do this? So just by changing his event orientation, the time that he turned on and off his lights and his heating, the amount of time his employees washed plates under the sink, we achieved a significant amount of savings. In addition, by changing his heating patterns, we also moved his peak loads, his peak electric loads, and heating loads off peak, which on the restaurant business is a huge, huge savings. So he attained 30% peak load savings, a 25% decrease in energy use overall for a very, very low investment. He saved 100,000 gallons of water a day, and to heat that water, he saved 260 million BTU of energy a year, which is huge. I mean, again, staggering is probably not even the right word. So what we called these guys, the early adopters, were trailblazers. After that, a lot of other restaurants started saying, wow, I like that Carrabba's model. How can I do it? And so that's kind of how that happened. It's just a graphic depiction of his energy costs and his peak demand costs before and then after. And again, it's a big, big, big win for both him, the city of Fort Collins, as well as the electric company. So every time on the demand side, both the utilities and the business owners can decrease their demand, it's one less electric plant that has to be built, which is a big, big deal. And so everyone has a vested interest in doing this. So here's kind of how this played out now, and as it's more of a formal structure. So if someone were to come to the Fort Said team and say, I want to do this, this kind of how it would happen. And this is what I wanted to portray to this group today, is let's bring this all together, and this is just one example. But it's a reasonable example as a roadmap anyway. So someone comes to us and say, I want to do the green dining deal. We'd refer them to get an audit by the Green Restaurant Association. They'd also train some local experts as well. And so we have local experts that can go out to these restaurants and show them how to do it. We'd also work on, as Greg mentioned, energy performance service contracting. There's a lot of companies out there that recognize that the variable frequency drives up in the blowers and so on, the ballasts in the lights, all of these in older buildings can be changed out for a significant savings in energy. So then they took this model and they said, okay, well, we will go ahead and make those changes. We're going to own those changes, but by the way, you're going to save so much in your energy costs per year. And we'll guarantee that. But instead of writing the check to the electric company, you're going to write the check to us for a certain amount of years, but after a certain amount of years, you own those improvements. And so that's essentially a very simplistic model of an energy performance service contract. What we do is work with these type of companies like Toll Mechanical, Bowden Gans, and so on, and we pair them up with the restaurants so the restaurants don't have any cost, which is great. So we work with EPC contractors, including the refrigeration, HVAC, and solar and wind. Solar and wind, again, the cost benefit of those are coming down. We've got our distributed smart grid, distributed power, and so on, so it's all coming together. But again, it's not going to happen overnight. So it's just, we've got to start somewhere. And the new energy economy is going to happen, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen from a lot of initiatives coming from a lot of people, but we have to start somewhere. So we pair the restaurants up. We get the results. The results are in Fort Collins, the restaurants that go ahead and use this initiative are then added to the green restaurant bill, which is great. So someone who's interested in green dining will probably frequent your restaurant more, which is a great benefit. Kind of cool stuff. So the next steps. So I've mentioned a few of them, but as a small to medium-sized business owner, what do I need to do? So the big thing is research. I mean, you've heard a lot of things here today. I'm immersed in it day to day. Again, I come from the supply side on the biomass and so on and so on. But there's a lot of things that I'm exposed to on the demand side. But if you're just a small business, medium-sized business owner, and you've got your things you do every day, likely the best place to research is on the internet, networking, going to IFMA and BOMA meetings, getting to know people who are actually